In this video, an insane neighbor killed my entire garden with salt, and I honestly have no idea how to deal with this crazy person. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. For most people, they might do a little garden every so often, or maybe some weekly upkeep of their plants. People enjoy having a nice garden, and it's normal, makes your property seem nicer. For myself though, I have found that I physically cannot stand having a garden that is anything but pristine. I have OCD, and one of the ways my brain decides to channel it is through my garden, so I've put countless hours in it. It's harmless and, if anything, is only helping the neighborhood to thrive even more. It gives the neighborhood a better image, helps with our local wildlife and biodiversity, and of course gets me quite a bit of praise, which I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy. My neighbor, however, does not like my garden. Every time there's some sort of garden competition and I win some award or something small, he will come over and start snarking about the noise or about how I should not have so many visitors. It is stupid things, and I've seen him trying to grow things and it just never works. So I assume most of his weird behavior is just jealousy, even though I have offered to help him grow his own beautiful garden. Maybe it is just the pride. Anyway, sometimes I've seen him in my garden at night through my cameras, picking a few of my flowers and planting them in his own garden. He'll maybe pick 2 to 3 a month and think he's being sneaky, and to be honest, I would rather not cause any arguments, so I just never said anything. Which I guess worked out for me, as it meant he never fully clocked the cameras. Of course, these few flowers would not last long in his garden, whereas the gaps in mine were quickly filled. In some weird way, I quite liked filling in the spots. "More time in the garden?" my neighbor asked with a scoff as he was getting ready to go to work. "Yep," I replied with a tight-lipped smile. This was a daily conversation. "Why don't you spend your time trying to find an actual hobby?" he asked, walking over to where I was, picking up some of my tools. Well, this is a hobby and it's not hurting anyone, so I tried to signal him to leave. "It's just a bit lame, really," he shrugged, tossing my tools right on top of the flowers I was planting, crushing the stem. "Oops." I sighed and stood up. "Listen man, I'm not trying to cause any problems with you. Why don't you just leave me alone? There's literally nothing wrong with liking to attend to a garden, and maybe you're the one in need of a new hobby." "Not trying to start a problem?" my neighbor laughed. "You're constantly trying to show me up with this garden of yours. I think you're the one starting the problem. I've said countless times that I'm more than happy to help you with your own garden." I sighed, watching as he walked away. He flipped his middle finger at me while he accidentally slipped and crushed some of my flowers with his work boots. He then drove off, also making sure his type slightly skidded onto my grass. Honestly, what an ass. Now, as I'm sure you have guessed if you know anything about gardening, it does cost quite a bit. I have many rare and endangered plants in my garden that were costly to have shipped and checked for safe fit for area. I've put thousands into my garden, which is a lot, I know, but hey, it's my money, never mind how many thousands of hours I've put in as well. To be honest, I was absolutely stressed out because of this jerk, so I decided I needed some time off and went away for a mini vacation of 1.5 weeks to my parents' place around 100 miles away from my place. So you will understand my absolute shock and sadness when I came back to see my whole garden in absolute ruins. And when I mean ruins, everything was dead. Literally everything, and the things that weren't fully, they were well on their way. I remember running out and seeing as a few of my other neighbors came out as well. They were all trying to cheer me up, but also knew just how important this garden was to me. I began having a panic attack triggered by my OCD. I knew there was no easy fix. I couldn't figure out a plan in my mind to quickly revert the damages, and it was causing my brain to go numb. In all of my panic, I still managed to see what had done this. There was only one thing that could kill plants this quickly and destroy the soil beneath. It was salt. An easy ingredient to get, but deadly for plants. I was heartbroken as I looked around my garden and saw years of work and thousands of pounds go down the drain. I saw a rat, and I knew who had done this. Charging over to my neighbor's house, I banged on the door and waited for this smug man to come crawling out. He opened the door with a yawn and a big smile. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" he mused. My garden," I stammered. I could barely speak. "Oh dear," my neighbor gasped as he looked over towards my garden. "What happened here?" "Don't play dumb with me," I yelled into his smug face. "I know you have done this." "Do you have any idea how important this garden is to me?" "I have some ideas, but unfortunately I didn't think of this one." Haha, he yawned. "I have cameras," I blurted out, and loved the way his face fell ever so slightly. "Ha, no you don't," he replied, stepping back and all but slamming the door in my face. I then stormed over to my house, quickly thanking the neighbors who came over to cheer me up, and walked right over to my computer where the footage would be. Of course, I was right, he did put the salt everywhere, who else would it have been? But there he was, taking his sweet old time to destroy all my hard work. It more annoyed me that it only took one night to obliterate years of my work. I downloaded the footage onto my phone and headed right back over to my neighbor, who had since come outside and began speaking to our other neighbors who had gathered around. "Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he has just self-sabotaged himself to get pity," I heard my neighbor saying. Self-sabotage? I asked with a laugh. What is this then? I hit play on the video, making sure everyone could see. My neighbor quickly reached forward and attempted to turn it off, but I moved back before he could. "That doesn't even look like me," my neighbor huffed, to which I zoomed in on a frame where he was looking very close to the camera. My neighbors around me began tutting and calling him all sorts, to which there was a few mini arguments before I decided to send the rest of them away, saying that I appreciated their backup but felt bad if they had to fight my battle. Once they had left, my neighbors span on me with a big grin. "I'm actually quite glad I can now take credit for this wonderful work. Isn't it great?" "Why would you do this?" My neighbor shrugged and let out a hearty laugh. "Just for the fun, I suppose. It's not like you can do anything about it." After that comment, I was struck with the realization I could do something. I turned around, ignoring his laughs, and got into my car, driving to the nearest attorney's office. I walked in and got a consultation with some of the top lawyers in our area. I know for some this might all seem a bit extreme, but if you could fully understand the money, time and energy I've put into this… Well, anyway, a lawyer took my case, saying that with the evidence it would be fairly easy to win. We built a lawsuit to serve and decided that £10,000 was an achievable amount. Some would be for the damages, some for the cost to repair and rebuild everything, and the rest would be for emotional distress. Due to my OCD, he claimed the latter would certainly be applied. A week later, I started to hear the rumors that my neighbor was spreading about me. He had told everyone about the case I had filed and claimed that there was no way I would win, that I was being just petty and trying to destroy his life. He was claiming that I had lied, that the video was fake or was not him. He apparently was not smart enough to keep his story the same. "Yes, Your Honor, here's all the evidence we have procured, including the footage of the crime being committed, documentation of the damages done by the salt, and the prices of my plans. I've also included footage of my neighbor here stealing flowers over the course of a few years." My neighbor's smile fell slightly at this. I guess he didn't realize how far this would go. "Your Honor, my neighbor tried to interject but was immediately cut off by the judge, who scolded him for speaking out of turn in such a way. The judge looked over the papers and other evidence, shaking her head in disbelief. "Ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant will be ordered to pay the full requested amount, and you will also do 50 hours of community service for the theft." The judge banged her gavel. "No!" my neighbor shouted. "You gotta be joking! You cannot let this loser make me pay so much money!" A few people gasped at this outburst, and did he think that would help his case? "And community service? What the heck? It's not like I stole anything of any real value. Don't start with that rare plant stuff. I don't care." "You know what? I'm glad I did what I did. How can you not see from this lawsuit that this man is nothing but a bully? He has been harassing me for years." My neighbor continued. "If you want to file a report about said harassment, then please do so. For now, please remove yourself from my courthouse, as I don't tolerate such behavior here." The judge shot back. My neighbor left in a strop, and from the way my phone began to go crazy, it seemed he had gone straight to the socials. He started posting in all the neighborhood groups, calling me all sorts of disgusting and defaming names. I decided to just tag him in one post and upload all the videos. I added no text and hit send. It seemed to blow up in our group. Overnight, people were more than on my side. He was being flamed in all of the groups. Of course, nobody was gonna tolerate him after this. He ended up being kicked out of all the groups by the admins, which was hilarious due to all the spam and disgusting things he was saying. He had began going after everyone who was on my side, being hateful to their children and all sorts of other stuff. Honestly, just a strange man really, so it's known across my neighborhood that he is the weird neighbor, and I often see groups of kids at his house. I feel slightly bad, but then again, look at what he did to me. I spent the money restoring my garden and even had help from some other neighbors who were looking for tips, and now the whole neighborhood is shining with more amazing flowers. And of course, nobody messes with my garden anymore. And the next one is titled, "If you don't like it, you can just leave." And by the way, if you still enjoy the neighbor stories, please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much, and the next one starts like this. So I've been working with a home health agency for the better part of 9 months. I work 12-hour days with cases ranging from complex to simple. In that time I've worked 11 unscheduled doubles and 42 additional 12-hour overtime shifts. I have used exactly 2 sick days, one for myself and one for my kid. I do not do call out, I don't show up late, and I don't do the corner cutting they suggest. I take vacation time on my off days, and I've saved them on 3 specific occasions from failing audits. I picked up so much because A, the money is nice, and B, I legitimately care about the well-being of my patients, and C, they backed me. So you see, the company I work for likes to take on new clients without having enough staff to cover that patient, and then they freak out and offer bonuses for us to pick up. These are governmentally contracted jobs with big DOE bucks coming in. If they cannot prove the patient is taken care of, they are fined heavily. Too many fines and they are blackballed from taking new DOE clients at all. This company is so poorly run, it's a joke. They have 8 schedulers but still send mass texts every single day asking us to pick up. These, by the way, happen all hours of day and night, and they often double book or randomly change schedules without informing clients or nurses. They also underpay for my area, not much, but paying $4 less per hour is a big deal. They also won't respond to your questions, calls or texts for days to weeks at a time. I've been looking around for a while and found a company that pays more, has good leadership, and they said they would have me on the ground running closer to home if I just went through their hiring program. I agreed and have been an employee with them for about a month, just no hours worked yet. Back to my malicious compliance though, I knew that I would be out of town for a couple days and have 9 days worth of PTO banked. I decided to help them out and ask for 3 days off, and I assumed that would give them enough time to fill my spot, and well, I did this on September 13th. The days I requested are October 12th, 13th and 14th. It's a mini vacation for my family since I worked all summer. Monday, I received a nasty email about the final day for PTO requests being September 10th. I let the manager know that I was trying to help them out by giving them time to fill it. She shot back with how selfish of me it was to leave her short-handed. She rejected my PTO requests. Tuesday, I showed up at the office to discuss this little frustration. I mentioned my exemplary work history and intention of making things easier for them. She slammed the table with her balled fists and said, "You will work those days. I don't care if you have a trip planned to Australia, you will be there. If you don't like it, you can just leave." It was her nasty smirk that set me off. I stood up, took a mint and said, "As you wish. I expect all my PTO to be on my next paycheck in accordance with our state's PTO laws. And by the way, I hope you can fill the opening on such short notice." The look of horror on her face was more valuable than the PTO. In the past 24 plus hours, I've received 19 voicemails asking if I can come into work because they are short, and tonight is my first night with the new company. It ended up being $6 per hour more, 48 minutes each way closer to home, and I get paid 40 hours even though I worked 36. Be careful what you wish for, you may just get it. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Anyway, the next one is a petty revenge story. So, we moved to a new city 3 years ago and we specifically told our realtor that we would not buy a property that was subject to an HOA. She came through, no HOA. Apparently someone forgot to tell our neighbor though. Either that or our realtor did not notice that our house is in a 2-member HOA controlled by our neighbor. She called the city because we got a dog. She called the city because we were in our backyard at night. She called me because I gave her kids s'mores. She lost it on my kid and then called my daughter a liar when she was like, "I don't need this, I have math homework." She also told us the property line is about 3 feet closer to our house than it actually is. I'm sorry, what? We had a boundary survey done before getting a privacy fence. I forgot to tell her and the contractors are out there now loudly installing the posts. Oh, and I think their sprinklers are in our yard. What a bummer. Update to the story, there's not actually a 2-property HOA. We say that as a joke because she is constantly trying to tell us what to do. When we first moved here, we thought she was being helpful because this is our first experience with the suburbs and we had moved to a new state. We realized pretty quickly that she just likes telling people what to do. Update number 2, they had to have 3 of their sprinkler heads moved. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you still enjoy the revenge stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment because that would help me tremendously. Especially because lately the algorithm is once again giving me a hard time. Either way, the next one is another petty revenge story and it starts like this. So I paid $5 for lifetime full access to my favorite productivity app. Then they got bought, the new owners added a bunch of stupid features that slow it way down and used that as an excuse to make it cost $60 per year. So F that, but I still have not found an app similar to the simpler version. I emailed them and updated my 5-star App Store review to 1 star, and you can see so many reviews complaining about the same thing that they don't even respond to. What a way to start out with your existing customers. Well, it seems like they cannot take away my access to the full version though, so every day, several times a day, I open this app and get a splash screen telling me to buy it, and every day I X out of that message and continue using the app just as I had before. I don't even notice it anymore, it's been like this for months. They probably don't notice, but it makes me feel slightly vindicated every time. And the next one is a malicious compliance story, and it is an absolute banger. It's titled, "Boss was entitled on my day off." So this happened well over a year ago, but as a unionized employee, I get every 3rd Friday off. On my day off, I'm playing some video games and get a text from the boss. "I know it's your day off, but whatever, that's easy to ignore." But then I get a second text, and after I ignore that one, I get a call. "Boss, I know it's your day off, but our phones are down." Me, "No worries, I will handle it." We hung up and I call our phone provider. I am the IT and the contact there, and this is not my first call ever to them, so I literally have their service department saved in my phone. I call, I register the problem, and they say they will look into it. I provide them my boss's name and extension, and to call him when it's fixed. I then call my boss back and I let him know that they will call him ASAP. But now for the malicious compliance bit, our contract stipulates a minimum call in of 4 hours, meaning that you cannot pay me less than 4 hours for a day unless it is by my own choosing. If you call me in for an hour and send me home, I get 4 hours of pay. But wait, there's more. We also have an overtime clause that pays OT at 150%. And lastly, we have a clause that says all OT must be approved by the boss, or else it is 1-to-1 TOIL, time off in lieu, which you can take at a 1-to-1 ration. In other words, if I decide that the weekend is a good time for server updates, I don't need to ask for approval, but my 2 hours of work only translate to 2 hours of paid time off elsewhere. Combine all this in one delightful batch, and you get a 10-minute call that results in 6 hours of bank time off. I went right back to my video games, filled out my timesheet the week after, and said, "I know it's your day off, but..." is implied consent for overtime. Minimum callout of 4 hours at 150% is 6 hours. So basically almost an entire day off with pay in exchange for a 10-minute call. Thank you very much. Bonus, guess who has 2 thumbs and has since then never been called on his day off? This unionized guy. Hint, get unionized and fight back. Edit, I did not think this would take off like this. Of course, anyone saying this is not malicious is kind of right. Sadly, we live in a world where a lot of people are expected to work beyond their scope, and while my experience should be normal, it really is not for a lot of people. The expectation my boss had, I presume, is that I would write the 15 minutes down, we write our time in blocks of 15, and be content with that. We all deserve, number 1, to be left alone during our time off, and B, to be compensated and compensated well. Especially if we are asked to give up time off to do a work thing. You work to live after all, not the other way around. And by the way, Ripe stars, I guess that depends where you are living, because I know that some cultures pretty much live to work. Let me know how it goes where you are from. Either way, to those asking what IT union I'm with, I'm not in a special IT union, it's just a union with experience with office jobs. If you're interested in joining a union and don't know where to start, call any local union. A nurses or plumbers union will gladly point you to the right place if they cannot help you themselves. More unionized workers are good for everyone, because we as a working class need to understand that we are all in this together. And now, Ripe stars, we have a very special story. It is an Am I the A-hole story that has a final update. Since I know that many of you complained that usually the Am I the A-hole stories don't have an update. So from now on, I will try to find stories that have updates. Either way, this one starts like this. So one of my 29 male best friends, Carla, 31 female, is getting married soon. It's only meant to be a small backyard type of wedding, but they've been planning it for a few months now, and originally it was supposed to be on my property. They wanted it because it's private and has lots of open space for the reception, a nice view, and the house could be used for them to get ready and stuff. Of course I said yes. She and her fiancé Rick were very happy. The thing is, Carla and I do have a history. We went out on and off in college but decided to stay friends. Then I met my wife, we got married, Carla met Rick, and now here they are. Now, my wife knows that I went out with Carla back in college and she did not really care. Carla still went to our wedding and everything. I never knew if Rick was told or not. It's not my relationship, therefore not my business to say anything, so I simply never did. Rick though found out recently, and not in the best way. Not sure how, but from what I heard from friends is that one mutual friend told him, no idea why, that we used to date. Not only that, but apparently Carla said a couple of years ago she was still in love with me when she was already dating Rick. Don't have actual confirmation if that's exactly what he was told. All Carla's told me is that Rick was told about our past and he is angry at her for never saying anything. It became quite a drama and I didn't hear from her for over a month until now. She told me that they are going to couples counseling and that the wedding is still on. However, Rick requested that I not attend. It sucks, but I totally get why he would not be comfortable, so then I asked the obvious question, where are they gonna hold the wedding then? To my surprise, she said they still want it at our place. Rick said so too, and in my mind I'm going, he doesn't want the guy who dated his fiancée years ago at the wedding, but he still wants the wedding at his house. My wife and I are expected to just not be at our home that weekend, and then I told Carla no. They are going to have to find someplace else since we are not going to simply leave our home to them for the weekend. Not only for safety reasons, but it just does not make sense. Rick does not want me around because he is not comfortable, but is comfortable enough to have their wedding at my house. They really want their wedding here though, and because of that I've been bugged by not only her, but also Rick and some friends who think that I'm being a petty a-hole for not letting them have the wedding here anymore. Honestly, I don't think that I am, it just doesn't make sense at all to me to leave our own place for a wedding we are no longer welcome to and leaving our home totally vulnerable. Still being accused of sabotaging their wedding, and Rick believes it's the least that I can do after everything. So Reddit, am I the a-hole here? And yeah, Ripe Stars, please let me know what you think about this. Is OP the a-hole for not giving away his property for a wedding he's not invited to anymore? Either way, comment number 1 said, not the a-hole, that's not how this works. You don't get to be uninvited from a wedding that is literally in your backyard. You are being incredibly kind and they are being incredibly rude. Either you are allowed to come or they need to find a different venue. Wow, how entitled can you get? Comment number 2, not the a-hole. If he is uncomfortable by your presence, he is welcome to shell out a deposit on short notice for another venue. No way in hell would I allow myself to be run off my own property by an insecure man to use as he sees fit, even just for a day. Malicious destruction on top of typical wedding party mess? No thank you. And yeah guys, thankfully we have an update from OP here. It reads like this. So some stuff has happened recently and many of you have wanted an update on this. Appreciate the reassurance and understanding my decision when seems that many in this situation didn't. So basically I remained firm in my decision about not letting them use my property for their wedding. Even if they changed their mind about inviting us, which honestly I don't care about anymore. Rick's family, thanks to him, got a hold of my cell, so that was more people I had to deal with. I put my foot down with Rick a few days ago and told him directly that I will go to the police and press charges for harassment. I have all the texts and calls documented, also had a very long talk with Carla about everything going on. She apologized for it all and she knows it's her own fault. Well, she decided to be the one to call things off in the end. Some of my friends still seem to think it's my fault and I'm taking some distance from them for a while. And also from Carla after getting some confirmation on a few things that I needed to know. The whole thing is a mess. I'm only glad in the end that I didn't give in to their demands and the constant bugging has stopped. It was still a huge headache over the last few days and not the kind of drama that I want back in my life. Thank you to everyone who made me feel supported in this. It helped a lot not feeling like the only other person, aside from my wife, who thought their demand was insane and inappropriate. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I'm so happy that OP did not give in to these entitled people. Honestly, how can you have even the audacity to demand that someone lends you their property for your wedding and then you insist that this person is not invited to your wedding, aka banned from his own property? Absolutely ridiculous. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I was part of an HOA and I had no idea that I was being scammed by them for a decade. Not only me, but every single member was being told to pay for things that turned out to be much cheaper than the HOA was telling us. Starting from the beginning, before I get too ahead of myself, I want to explain how they managed to do this. Instead of a monthly or yearly fee like most HOAs have, the system changed here about a decade ago. So we live in a gated community mainly comprised of retired people that just want to enjoy the rest of their life without many worries. So no kids or anything are allowed in the neighborhood, and the HOA helps to enforce all of that. They decided to build a facility in the neighborhood that is akin to a pool club, I guess. There's a pool, a gym center, tennis courts, etc. While most places like this would require a membership fee, our payment for it would be what we were giving the HOA. For building it, we would all need to pay more than usual, and our fees would be increased every year for it. They did everything above board with having a vote, and everybody, including myself, seemed to think it was a good idea. We had to pay more, but now we had this great place to go in, walking distance for most of us. You might be thinking this means we had a good HOA that actually cared about people and wanted to help us. Well, that was the mask they put on, and everybody was fooled by it for many years. So last year, I got a phone call asking if I wanted to be involved in a class action lawsuit against the HOA. I did not understand why they were being sued at first, but the more the person explained it to me, the more I realized I had been taken advantage of. They fed on the ignorance and good nature of the older generation in order to line their pockets. This is what happened when I got the call. Me, hello? Man, we are calling to inform you that you are eligible to join a class action lawsuit against your HOA. I thought this was a scam or something and was gonna hang up, but before I could, I heard them saying something else. Man, it turns out that the facility you've been helping pay for is much cheaper than they led you to believe. They have pocketed $35 million over the last 10 years, and we want to get that money back in the pockets of homeowners where it belongs. Me, in that case, yes, I'm interested in joining. What do I need to do? I was given instructions of who to write to in order to make sure my name was down for the lawsuit. I could have sat around and just waited, but I'm a nosy person and had nothing better to do, so I was keeping a close eye on the lawsuit and what was happening, as well as finding out more details of what happened since the phone call was so short. Well, what I found out was that on all the paperwork they were showing us about the cost of building and maintaining the facilities of the HOA, they were lying about the total costs of everything. And not just by a small amount either. In total, they really had taken $35 million extra from us all over a 10-year period. I stopped paying my dues, as did everybody else involved in the lawsuit. They were not gonna get more money from me that was just going to be put towards their defense. The only reason anybody was hinted onto the corruption was an old HOA member feeling bad and doing the right thing by coming forward, admitting that not all the money was going towards the place and instead they were taking it for themselves. Always in ways that could try and keep the money hidden by spending it on things labeled a business expense. Vacations, nice meals, etc. Even though I don't think the HOA is a business, so the government really should have caught them before. Unless it just wasn't something that gets looked for normally. This guy was just as guilty as the rest of them, but made a ton of statements and claims of where the money went that did help our side. I wish that the man grew a conscience before it had gotten to this point. It was not gonna be the most exciting case because the HOA was not gonna have as much of a defense for themselves. That does not mean that they didn't try and drag out the lawsuit for so long some people even forgot about it. Literally, this was an 18-month process of them doing whatever they could to keep it going and avoid paying out the money. They did have an argument claiming they never said all the money we gave was for the facilities and instead they needed more for other types of upkeep, going directly against the contracts we signed stating what the HOA money would be for. Also, they tried to give the fake paperwork to the courts claiming the cost was that high. It didn't take long for that to be disproven and the real estimate quotes and what was being paid came to light. They knew they were gonna be in deep trouble and finally they ran out of excuses. It was time for the ruling. The court found in favor of the people and demanded that the $35 million of overpaid money be distributed back to everybody. It was not life-changing amounts of money because of how many people it had to be split between, but it was not anything to sneeze at either. Getting money back felt really good, even though it was my money to start with. It always felt like I'm winning something when I get a rebate type of check. The money was not everything, because the HOA members were also being sued criminally for embezzlement or money laundering. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact terminology here, basically for stealing from people and lying about where the money was going and pocketing it instead. Whatever the legal term for that crime is, they were found guilty. The guy that was in charge of the whole thing went to prison with the others under him, having to pay fines and I think getting home arrest and the like. The whole thing was just too interesting to not share, and when I told my son, he pointed me in the direction of this website where I could tell everybody. I couldn't stop reading either, and I cannot believe how bad some HOAs are. I'm now a big fan of this website, and I hope that people enjoy reading what happened to me with them. Please be careful out there with HOAs trying to scam you, and make sure you know exactly where your money is going in the future. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.